right. Hey, Gundam Maniacs. Welcome to the Gundam Explained Show. It is May 18th, 2023. I'm your host, Adam Blue, and joining me, Steven from Midnight Hatter. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. Busy week. There's a lot of GBO2 stuff going on. I know the PC release is around the corner. And also it was cool because on your stream yesterday, we played GBO2, and I gotta say, that was like the most fun I've had playing GBO2 in a while because we had
Yeah.
Autonomous also.
Yeah, I gotta say GBO2 is a lot more fun with friends. And we're
Yeah.
definitely, behind the scenes, Adam and I are talking about doing that a little bit more often and maybe bringing in some more of our celebrity guests
Yeah.
to star.
Now that'd be fun, and especially coming up with the idea of like themed matches and stuff like that, because there's hundreds of mobile suits, and
Yeah.
it's crazy, and that's the other thing that's crazy is for those that subscribe to the channel, there was like so many GBO2 videos that went up. That just has to do with a PC release is coming up soon, and this Bandai Namco Entertainment America, I have to make that clear, has been like help coordinating the type of content to make. So I had dropped all those. So if people are looking for some cool tips, there's a bunch of stuff out there for that.
I'm one of those guys.
But what was funny is obviously, Talos was in the chat yesterday kind of helping out, and really a lot of the tips and a lot of the strategies and the best practices are based on what he has suggested to me. So he's been a great resource throughout all this. So shout out Lord Mobius or Talos, USS Talos. But yeah, so, today's show would be pretty cool. Zelda is very topical, and it's very interesting that there's a lot of Gundam-related Zelda content creation out there, so we'll talk about that. Also, I wanted to talk, when it comes to Gunpla, and it doesn't have to be, I guess, Gunpla specifically, but Gundam collectibles, or just collectibles, like storage, or maybe little tips and tricks of being able to have your office space, or if you even in a shared space with someone and you want to be able to have your stuff but not be cluttered. We'll just talk about some of what we do, and then in chat you guys can throw stuff in there.
And you and I both being parents, like keeping your kids away from the Gunpla collection, that's like a whole
Yeah,
we could
I
probably
know.
do a video just talking about that.
Yeah, that's been a ride. And also in GBO2, speaking of GBO2, they released a double Zeta mass production type, and it's something I wasn't familiar with. So we'll kind of dive into the lore of that a little later today. But to start, anything Gundam related you got yourself into this week?
Well, over on the supporter stream, I was showing off. I'm not doing the supporter streams as often because I want to focus on actually delivering content every once in a while. But we've been working on the little Psycho Gundam diorama that I started, forever ago, and so yeah, we've got our LED wired miniature 3D
Dang.
printed Psycho Gundam that it's powered by a little coin battery. So there's going to be some cool effects that we've got going on in this little miniature scene of New Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's awesome. And especially, I think it was your video last week where you were kind of showing the wiring in the first place, like your approach to the LED, and then this kind of within the diorama. Specifically, that is an awesome idea. I remember you were talking about that before when you were thinking what kind of diorama. And I think that
Yeah,
scene is pretty cool.
and it's cool because it's hopefully you guys are getting some inspiration from Adam and I tinkering with these things, like taking a household thing like an LED tea light and taking it apart and turning it into something Gundam.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely inspiring me. I need to get to more of that. In fact, I in the mail, and it took like a month to get here. I ordered a bunch of RGM 79 decals because I have that whole fleet behind me, and I
Yes.
decided, you know what, I'm going to get decals on them, weather them a little bit, and then I might even go a step further because it's easy to mess around the head and maybe put a LED in the head. I don't know. I
Yeah.
really want to make like a badass looking like squad of like, here's the RX-78-2 and its GMs backing them up. That's
Do like some model numbers on like or like unit numbers. So
yeah.
like,
I gotta think
unit
about
2,
that.
unit 3, unit 4, that sort of thing.
Yeah, this actually has up to number 3, but I can easily get other numbers. That's a great idea. Or just use the numbers of the decal. But no,
That's
that doesn't look as
that's
good.
another way of doing it. Look, hey, I've done it. I think I'll show it a little bit later when we get into the talk about Gunpla storage. Because
Yeah.
speaking of Gunpla in storage, I used the model number of the decal as a unit number on a mobile suit.
Yeah, I'd like to see that because yeah, that's just it's another interesting, neat way to use the stuff you already have to, you know, and
Yeah, decals are
for
expensive.
yeah, I know, yeah, and speaking of that type of stuff, like that Verka Zeta is it should be around here soon. Like I think I had it pre-ordered, but then New Type had it up for sale. My pre-order didn't ship, so I was like, well, I'm just gonna buy it there and then cancel my pre-order. It
I
is
just got the notification that my pre-order shipped today, so I
nice.
was like,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
finally, we
because
are gonna have the Verka in the house.
yeah, and being Vercut's gonna have all those decals, which I
Yes.
love decals to be honest. It's just a fun little thing to do. Um, I'm trying to think if there's any other thing Gundam related I really got into, and not really. And it's funny. Yesterday, and I kind of see this Gundam adjacent in a way, and I'll explain why. Starship Troopers game came out yesterday, Extermination, and I just like the idea
Awesome.
of you have these troops, weapons rolling out. There's an enemy, and there's kind of a that back and forth battle stuff. So I had fun playing that, and I gotta say, it delivered way more than I was expecting. Every Starship Troopers game I've ever played, and I think the first one was on PC back in the late '90s. It was where you had a squad that you just
Yeah.
moved around on the map, and it was okay. And then there was a third-person shooter that was. I remember they started development in the late '90s, and it never came out. Um, and then in the mid 2000s, there was a first person shooter that actually had pretty good graphics for the time, but it was really basic and it didn't feel good. Um,
Yeah.
and then I think it was just last year the RTS came out, and I love RTSs, but it wasn't the type of RTS. It was very light to the strategy and tactics. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
this
there's only
one,
so much you can do against the brain bug, right? Like,
yeah,
it's
well, yeah, you know what? That's actually a good point too because I was even thinking of that with this FPS. It's like, well, what more can they do if it's just swarms of bugs? So a cool thing about it is it's 16-player co-op, and you're just fighting swarms of bugs, but there's objectives. Like you have to land on the planet. People will have to split up and grab things to like build generators or whatever, defend the generators, and then once you're done, you have to then try to extract off the dropship. And
oh
so it's at
man.
that last moment. But here's what is awesome about it. As you go, you actually do building. And this is another thing we're going to get into here shortly because constructing and building has been a big thing in video games lately.
It
Um,
has.
so what's cool about in the Starship Troopers game is you can actually build walls, turrets, ladders, like anything. And it's very easy and intuitive with the controls. And I got to say, I only played one match and I just haven't had time really to get back to it. Got work, all this stuff. But it was a ton of fun. $25 early access.
Not
But
bad.
yeah, but a ton of fun. I mean, I think it's what everyone's been hoping for. 16-player co-op Starship Troopers. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
The
But
game you didn't know you needed.
yeah, exactly.
That's how, yeah.
All right, and before we get into our first topic, just shout out to the chat. We got Talos, good to see you. Robert, Nike, Goose in the house, Shirt Lad. Uh, let's see, Barry, BB, Matt, Mad Dog Wheaton. So good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I think is interesting in let me see if I can fix the computer's messing up here and it's flashing. But so the new Zelda game came out, and
Yes.
I'm a huge Zelda fan. I've always been a huge Zelda fan. Um,
Same here.
and I love Breath of the Wild a lot. Like I consider it top 5 favorite games of all time. Okay, give me 1 second because I think I can fix this thing.
Yeah. I
Okay.
would say that Breath of the Wild was no pun intended, but a breath of fresh air in kind of a stale gaming environment. Because although there have been lots of again, I hate the term open world because it's kind of a misnomer, but there have been lots of, non-linear play style games that have come out recently. And yet somehow Breath of the Wild was able to stand out amongst all of those for its time. Um, Obviously there are other games that do the open world a little bit better, give you more things to explore, more variety of things that you can interact with. But one thing that I think Breath of the Wild just nails is the physics and like the environmental interaction. I
Yeah.
don't think that there's another game. Maybe Far Cry comes close,
Oh yeah,
but like there, I can't think of
for sure.
another example, and maybe chat will correct me, but like I can't think of another example of a game where you can interact with the world quite as much as Breath of the Wild.
While being almost a traditional game at the same time. And
Yes.
and so that yeah, that's why I love Breath of the Wild, because once you get onto that plateau, it's like go get Ganon, and
Yeah.
I love that idea because it's like, well, I have this whole world and you're not telling me where to go, and then along the way you're just discovering things and all that. And so Tears of the Kingdom, I think, and I don't want to knock it, even though I'm not as into it as I thought I'd be, but what's cool is they really went all in on the construction, the building. For me, it just feels like Minecraft in a way, because you can just sit there and experiment, and I think that's good in itself. And like, it's not what I want
Yeah.
out of Zelda, but it's cool. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because I'm shocked how often I come across Gundam related Tears of the Kingdom stuff. Thinking like,
Yeah.
oh, I've never before this, like I never hear about Gundam anywhere. But now, there's like videos of people that are actually, let's see. Oh, I did not mean for it to do that, but it did that. Let's see. Let me before I get. Is there not even a mute on the TikTok website? But anyway,
Well, I don't know.
it's
I don't TikTok.
Oh yeah, I can. Oh, is that it right there? Yeah, they're hiding it by their name. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it's
Clever.
pretty cool. Yeah, people are building things, crazy things in this. Like, and when you build things that you can operate, there's the batteries, so you got to have the material to recharge.
Yeah. I
Um,
do love that mechanic, like that there's yes, you can build anything, but there's, you know, built-in limitations
yeah,
and costs associated with it, resources that you need to manage.
yeah, no, exactly. And so you think, okay, then what do people in this one? This is called Macross F. So it's funny how it's like more of a Macross related thing, because of the design of the ship and everything. But
Yep.
oh, you know what? That I'll get. Well, it's kind of related, but someone did some awesome fan art, and when it says your groom has arrived, Zelda Sand, and it looks like the aerial, that Link would have built, and that's just kind of a cool little thing someone made.
That's pretty awesome.
But another one was, I see this, and they're like, Tears of Kingdom fan art gives Gundam Reconquista meme new life. So one, I didn't know people talked about Gundam Reconquista. I mean, I do Gundam stuff all the time, and that barely comes up. So this is
Yeah,
like, it seems like such a weird, deep cut to make a news article about. But
agreed.
but I guess the point is, it's really cool to see that there's like this crossover fandom of like Zelda and Gundam. Yeah, which is really cool. And then this one is this Gundam Robot Flies. So yeah, this is one where we saw that a second ago. Okay, here is where it's just kind of marching around, or maybe it's still on wheels.
Now, how soon do you think, like, you know, you're gonna get these Macross and Gundam references, and then somebody on Facebook is gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, they made a Transformer in Zelda."
Oh yeah.
Like, it's Optimus Prime.
Or someone finds an episode of Gundam or Transformers, and they're like, "Oh, look, they put the crafting from Tears of the Kingdom on as a TV show." Like the whole Fortnite thing. Where,
Yeah.
yeah, that's no, so yeah, I think that's
They brought
really
Fortnite
cool.
back.
Because and that's what I think is cool about the game. It's like
Yeah,
it's almost like they should have found a way to um make a game, and again, this is really just my opinion, so I could be wrong, but like
yeah,
I like the crafting, but like there's an adventure in the game, and then there's the crafting, and they're both cool on their own, but together I'm spending a lot of time. Like
yeah.
it's fun, but it's like very time consuming. And
Yeah, the crafting mechanic itself, um, it's easy to sort of get a hold of, but it is very tedious. Like, you're okay, hold this button to engage the grab, to do this, then rotate it, and then like, it's not as intuitive as something like Minecraft where it's like,
Right.
just slam a block down.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like I feel like there's ways they can improve on this, but we know Nintendo, they
Definitely.
tend to go the wrong direction with improvements, and but hey, they're successful. So,
Well, and it's funny because Zelda kind of has there's sort of two Zelda tracks. You've got the mainline titles, and then you've got the sort of side games that are typically on handheld devices, things like that. Things like Spirit Tracks,
yeah.
um, and that's where you would usually see them explore these sort of alternative mechanics, like a Link Between Worlds, where you could flatten out and walk on walls and things like
Yeah.
that. That's something that you would never see in, Twilight Princess or Breath of the Wild. And so what's kind of interesting to me is that the crafting mechanic is something that would have been amazing as like a side Zelda title on a 3DS or something like that.
Yeah.
However, they kind of smushed it into a mainline title, which, for better or worse, I think that obviously it works better with the physics engine that Breath of the Wild offers. So I see why they did it. It just it does feel a little bit, like a square peg.
Yeah, and it reminds me of what they did with Mario Odyssey, and while I had fun with it, there was just a bunch of content where some of the times it was just half okay. It was like, "Oh, yeah, that was okay." And that's what they've done here, and I don't wanna spoil it, but in Tears of the Kingdom, there is so much content. It's almost like 2 Breath of the Wilds. There's a re it seems like it's 2 Breath of the Wilds worth of content where, I feel like Nintendo was kinda like, "How much content can we put in this?" Instead of like really honing in and focusing and really making that crafted experience, because again, the crafting is cool, but within the open world, to where there's so much to do, and it could be also my age, it's like, okay, that's just too much. It's fun, but like I have things to do. No. Hopefully one day, I'll get back to it, because I can't help but be happy when I see Tears of the Kingdom stuff,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, building these Gundam uh robots or whatever. So,
It does make me nostalgic for the Little Big Planet days where I would try to make either a Metal Gear or a Gundam in Little Big
oh,
Planet, and you know, there's nothing cooler than being a little sack boy and hopping inside of a Gundam and walking
yeah,
across the screen. Like,
that is true. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. That's weird. I think the only time I've really done a lot of crafting or construction in games, other than Minecraft, I think anything before that was Warcraft 2, because it had the level editor, and I would make an Army of Darkness level where I had like the castle, and then make it where like
awesome.
skeletons would storm the castle. And yeah, other than that, yeah,
Halo
it's
Forge.
oh yeah, that's right. There's the forge, and so you know what? That could be part of it too. What if it is really just the controls, where then I'm like, this is amateur, even though it's Nintendo. But at the same time, Nintendo does cut costs a whole lot. Like at the end of the day, these graphics are not good. It looks okay, but
No,
it's like,
no, you're right.
but it's just like for, I guess maybe, yeah, maybe I'm coming to a conclusion for 2023. If they release this 4K 60 FPS experience, maybe it would be easier for me to like take it seriously. But for Nintendo to kind of be like, well, it's just Breath of the Wild again, and then we'll just add this crafting. It's like, well, I want a new experience. I don't know. It
See
reminds me
that.
of the feeling I've had after playing Resident Evil 4. Because I love video games so much, but then when I play a game I'm excited about and it doesn't hit the spot, I feel like what's happened to my reality, and it's like I need to readjust.
Is that the problem though? Is it that we get our hopes up and we create this expectation, this fantasy, and of course the reality never lives up to the fantasy.
Yeah,
And I think that you see this with a lot of games. Honestly, the Resident Evil 2 remake was phenomenal, but no
yeah,
one was expecting it. No one was hyped up about it
right.
until they played it, and then 3 and 4 have come out now, and people couldn't stand 3. It was short. It
Oh,
left out the clock tower fight, left out the gravedigger. Resident Evil 4, like you said, underwhelming. But is it because we have kind of gotten our hopes up and created this expectation that the reality was never gonna live up to.
Yeah, and then sometimes I have to do this thing that I've talked about before where it's like I have to step back and be like, well, it's not about me. There's these younger generations that they're better at fortifying the future of IPs. And so the big thing, Minecraft, Roblox, even Fall Guys has added the creative mode. So to have a game like Zelda come out on the Switch, lots of kids have it doing the create.
Yep.
It makes sense for Nintendo to do it like this. It's because of the market. They're not making a 4K 60 FPS
Yeah.
gaming console. They're like, here's a handheld. Kids are using tablets and phones all the time anyway.
And they want touchscreen
Yeah,
interaction. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that's a good point, and honestly, I wouldn't expect there's a lot of games out there that graphics-wise, I'm like, "This doesn't need to be 4K," because it's
Yeah,
designed to be stylized and cutesy. It's not,
right.
we're not trying to see the pores on people's skin. Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's,
No, it's one of those things. I hope one day I come around to it, and then I'm like, yes. But right now, I'm more excited about playing Starship Troopers really than Zelda. That's crazy. Um, Well, cool then. Yeah, curious what you guys think about Zelda. So, like in the comments, I'm curious, like just in general, are you liking the new one or not? Because like when I see all those tens from the major uh gaming outlets, I'm like, well, they're major gaming outlets, and they usually have to be good with Nintendo, or Nintendo will drop them. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that
I don't know.
reminds me of I think there was a comment on one of your recent tier lists where someone was like, "Why do you even have C and D and E on your tier list if you're not going to use them?" And it's like, well, it's
Well,
a Gundam channel. I love Gundam. Like, what do you?
yeah, and it's like because I think they're that good, where I wouldn't consider them that bad. Like that's, I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of the point of having them there.
right.
Because then it would mean that C means it's bad. You know what I
True.
mean?
Right. Yeah.
And
If you take
yeah,
away the context of
yeah,
there is a bad that exists, this isn't it.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
None of this is bad, but
And that's crazy to think because if I was to do a tier list of the Star Wars movies, there would be some in the bad. Uh, and it's crazy to think that Gundam is that cool. You see Gundam, but hey,
yes.
Double O's cool. There's other centuries that are cool,
Yeah,
or
you get
whatever.
a couple there's a couple of, diamonds in the rough.
But you know what? I forgot what your take on Build Fighters was. Did you say you liked it?
I'm not a fan of the anime in particular.
Yeah.
I did watch Build Fighters Try, and I kind of enjoyed that
Okay.
one. But I love the Gunpla, and I love what it does, for not only for the Gundam fans, but also like the Gunpla development line. I've said it before.
Oh yeah.
The Build Gundam Mark II is leagues better than the high grade Mark II, or any, or even the high grade Revive Mark II, which is based on the Build Fighters design, but still
Not
doesn't
as
have the
cool.
same level of articulation, lacks some of the polycaps. It's like if you want the more authentic version of the build, or if you want a more authentic version of the Gundam Mark II, buy the Build Gundam Mark II and just leave out the build parts.
You know what just came to mind? Like it's with the build stuff and just talking about video games and how now a lot of the games, especially targeted at younger, are about building and crafting. Like I think Bandai had the idea, early on to like really focus on the crafting aspect. And I think they could go a step further where there is a game, again, another game idea where you're a character that you build Gundam, but it's like Minecraft or Zelda where you're actually the pieces are around you and you're building it, then you go into it and then you can
There you
go.
go. Bandai Namco Entertainment America, if you are listening, this is what we want. No, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea. I think the
Yeah.
game developers are all chasing the same goal, which is ultimate player expression. And
Yeah. Yeah.
there's certain contexts where player expression is great and certain contexts where it maybe doesn't work quite as well. And I think I mentioned this on stream while we were playing GBO2, is it's like there is a correct way to play Gundam Battle Operation.
Oh,
There, you would be hard pressed to say that there is a correct way to play either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom,
yeah. Very good
because
point.
they open up the solutions to all sorts of different, play styles and again, it comes down to like the world interaction and interacting with the physics and playing with the enemy AI and things like that. Um, if there was that sort of element to a Gundam game where you not only have the ability to, jump and shoot and transform and those sorts of things, but lay traps for enemies. Like
Mm.
you kind of get a little bit of that in Code Fairy where you can kind of lay those little traps
Yeah,
to
that's right.
to lure enemies in and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
But imagine if, using your Zaku 3, you could lay, the mines down that
yeah,
it reminds me of like, and like you said, Nintendo's been on this for probably decades now because there was different ways to even play GoldenEye compared to modern shooters
yeah.
where you're basically if you're playing a modern multiplayer shooter, you're just going to run around in FPS and, you're just gonna run around and shoot people.
Yeah,
But you go back to GoldenEye where you had the proximity mines and the remote mines, and you could lay traps for people and things like that.
that's
It
true.
opens up so many different solutions to solve the problem of the game.
Yeah, you really bring up a good idea because in Code Fairy, like you were just talking about, yeah, they had those distractions, but also, what if you could make a piece of a highway fall as the
Yes.
or make a building topple, or what if you could punch or when you're doing melee attacks into a building or something and there's more damage or something. So yeah, I think adding where there are more options within, I think Tears of the Kingdom is that extreme idea, but I think if developers are going to learn anything from Tears of the Kingdom is to make it where gameplay mechanics give you those options to do things in different ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, Code Fairy, you really have to, especially on hard. It's almost
Oh,
like you
yeah.
have to play specifically, use your special at a specific time or the buff, like for the sniper or something. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Everything has to be, like, pixel perfect, even just, like, where you are standing on the map. Like,
Yeah.
if you are too far to the left and a building is not quite obscuring you from the enemy, then you get detected early, and then all of a sudden, the whole plan goes to
Yeah.
hell.
Yeah, no, that's some good. I'm glad we're talking about this then because, we'll keep these ideas in mind for our, future potential games that we make.
Exactly.
Um, but and then kind of transitioning from gaming to this Gunpla storage tips thing. I was talking to Red Wolf Vion yesterday, and he was telling me that he hasn't built in a while because he just doesn't have room anymore, and then that's why then he was able to get into the Gundam Breaker Mobile because that
Oh, there you
allowed
go.
him to
Scratch that
build.
itch.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, that's a pretty cool idea, even though like there's that hump, from physical media to digital. Like, I remember I was like, I would never do all digital, and now I am. And I would think I would never do digital Gunpla, but maybe, especially that room he's talking about, like where you don't have room. It's like, yeah, maybe physically build the ones you really like, and then use the games or whatever for. That's why, yeah, I hope then what Bandai's next step is with their Gundam Breaker stuff. They have like the new shows or episodes coming out later is a new game that is just more fully featured. I mean, do you see a future where building Gunpla is digital?
I mean, I think that that's what they're going for, right? With the build metaverse type thing. Obviously, I think that the metaverse miniseries that they're coming out with is to sort of gauge interest in that and see, would people give up the physical Gunpla? I mean, honestly, it's a lot cheaper overhead to just make some 3D models
Yeah,
and
I
have
know. Yeah,
fun,
that's the thing.
play in your digital
And
playground, and
charge a kit $20 for a digital kit, and then it's like, well, I have it, but it's digital.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
It's like the next stage of NFTs.
yeah.
But
I mean, and that's the thing. Like on the outside, it might sound like a bad idea, but it could end up being pretty fun. Just the way I think we're accepting some things nowadays, and we still have fun. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that there's definitely some caveats that I would say need to be in place in order to make it enjoyable, but it would be cool to because one of the things that like you and I can't do, I can't share my kits with you and say like, hey,
Oh,
come check out this paint job that I did on the Turn A over here. It's like, but imagine if we hop in our VR headsets and we can communicate with Gunpla creators, all across the globe and say like, "Hey, all right, come in, take a look at what I built here," and stuff like that. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of a physical separation between, your painting skills. Y-
Okay,
Yeah,
I was just about to ask that. Could there be a skill component with, I don't know, painting, decals, maybe where the tools itself are very free form in what you can like draw. Like when I would play the old Forza games or the older Forza games, I haven't played the newer ones where people would have their own paint jobs and they would be
yeah,
amazing because they just had random shapes that they were then. Oh yeah, and it reminds me of like old Halo or even Call of Duty profile pics where they would give you shapes and then you had to create whatever you could out of that.
yeah,
Um, maybe yeah, maybe that's the way to go with that. Because then yeah,
something like that.
you could say, hey buddy, can you help do the paint job on this? Or I want to be able to make it look like there's flames coming out or something, you know. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, obviously the cheap answer would be like, "Oh, well, you can just like click and apply flame decal." But like I think that would be too
Right.
while I think that would be it would lower the barrier to entry for, less experienced builders or less experienced players, I guess in this case. I think that by adding some sort of skill component or some sort of I don't know if it's unlocking things, through playing an actual build fighting
Oh.
game, something like that, or if there's some kind of customization, crafting. Obviously, everyone's chasing this crafting
Yeah.
gameplay, and no one's, as great as Tears of the Kingdom is, as great as Minecraft is. Like, obviously, I don't think that we've quite hit the level of crafting that is totally possible in video games. But if they could, it would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and not that I want to give them ideas because they're going to charge for things anyway, but I like the idea of here's a whole bunch of random shapes that you can manipulate in your own way, or you can just buy the decal. That could be
Yeah.
a way to go about it. It's that
Or
time versus money.
you kind of make it like GBO2 where, yes, you can buy tokens, but you can also earn the tokens
Yeah,
in-game, in-universe type thing.
yeah.
I don't mind that necessarily.
I don't mind it too much.
I
Except,
do think that Oh, go ahead.
and I was going to say, except I don't have the Hazel custom. Uh,
Yeah, I do think that if you are going to pay money for something, that you should probably get a little bit more. Maybe weight it so that you can get the things that you want faster than like
yeah.
the randomized, because that kind of sucks. Like, imagine if you spent $100 on tokens and you didn't get your Hazel custom.
That happened. I've only done that once, and it wasn't the Hazel. I forget what suit it was that I went ahead and bought, and this wasn't too long ago too, so I forget what it was. It maybe been a Advanced Zeta unit, but yeah, bought the tokens, did the whole thing, nothing. In fact, it was like a whole bunch of stuff I already had, so I got the recycle tickets, and I was kind of bummed out, which is interesting because wouldn't that make someone then less willing to do it again, potentially?
Right, and so that's where I think GBO2 has done a good job of this, and Ultronus and I were talking about this actually. Is it's nice that when you get duplicates of things, and I wish you could do this with more duplicates, because obviously, like, I don't need a level 3 Gundam and a level 3 and a level 4 Gundam, right? Yes, if you get something random that you don't want, you can trade it in for recycle tickets, and the recycle tickets you can then, purchase other stuff with. And there's other resources in GBO2 that after a while, a lot of the suits get unlocked for purchase. And as long as you have enough high enough rank, you can just buy the suit that you want. So
Yeah,
there is that sort of, the latest and greatest stuff is always going to be, loot box. But like, I bought the Zeta Gundam because I just happened to have enough points. So it's
yeah.
like,
And that's
um,
an interesting thing you bring up because I was hoarding my resources because I really didn't know when I should use it, what I should use it for, because it seems very limiting. But Talos luckily walked me through it, and he had me go in and buy all like the level 1 or 2 like armor parts or weapons. That then
yeah.
started unlocking the other ones, and I had enough money to really buy everything. And I was like, oh wow, I really had enough money to buy everything.
Talos is probably like, "Oh my god,
Yeah,
if I had the spending power that you do,
no,
I would
because I was sharing my screen with him, and he's all like, "You just need to buy all this. Just buy it all. Buy it all. Buy all this. Let's go over here. No, buy all this." And I had enough money, and then so it's interesting how that works. The psychology too. I think I do that in games too, where I remember I think it was like Resident Evil games sometimes. It's like you get these things and you don't want to use it because you never know if
Yeah.
you're not going to get it again. But then, like, you should just use it because you will eventually get it when you need it. I don't know. But
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like, what game was I watching a review of? I'm a big fan of Game Maker's Toolkit,
yeah,
great YouTube channel. He was talking about, you know, when you have limited resources in games, you don't wanna make players too protective of them. Like, you want
yeah.
them to be willing to spend them, and so, that's one of the problems that they had with Breath of the Wild, where it's like, you'd have this amazing weapon, and you're like,
Yeah.
"Well, but if I use it and I break it, then I'm not gonna be able to get it again," and
I was
so
literally doing that with Tears of the Kingdom. I have a couple weapons I haven't touched yet because I'm like, never know when I'm going to need this. Yeah. It's
yeah,
interesting.
they
It's a
haven't
weird.
quite cracked that code yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. That is something I want to keep in mind. And how did you word it? Like protecting or protective over resources?
Oh, yeah, protective, yeah.
Okay. I want to
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
you don't wanna
Yeah.
be miserly with resources, and, so maybe this is, some theory stuff that we should probably be talking about on my channel, but, like, what would you do to encourage players to give up to kill their darlings, right? To give up the resources that they're saving, um, I
Okay,
don't know.
well,
I mean
let's keep that in mind and maybe plan to do that. Talk about that on your show soon because I think that's a good gaming topic. And real quick, I want to move on, but something that reminds
yeah,
me of that is how lately games have been allowing you to respec your character, and I think that's a step in that direction. Yeah.
yes.
So yeah. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to talk about like the Gunpla storage tips and stuff. So
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
I will just jump into it if you want to show what you showed me a second ago
Oh, yeah, I was
or
like, "Man, this is
30 minutes
hilarious,"
ago.
because obviously, I've got my desk is a mess and stuff. So, like, I kind of collect tackle boxes and
Yeah.
all sorts of, like, little, just so for this is just holding, like, odds and ends, like, little effect parts and things like that. But I also for kits that I maybe am missing parts to finish the customs for or something like that. I have larger tackle boxes that, um, we've got entire high grades stuffed in here.
Wow.
Now, it's probably not the most protective. I know a lot of people will do like the foam inserts and stuff like that,
Mm.
but I'm not jostling this around and I'm not moving
Yeah.
anytime soon.
Just for
So,
general storage, I think that is awesome. And yeah, the tackle box thing. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm gonna grab one that I'm using.
but yeah, for the stream while Adam's gone, here is that I by using decal sheet number 5, I created a unit 5. Um,
Wait, is that the 5 from the sheet? Like
yeah,
the
so that
wow,
was the
that
model number of the decals, and I was like, well, I mean,
that
it
looks
makes
good.
for a good model number for the unit. So
Yeah. And so yeah, I have that same thing, the tackle box here, and I don't know why I didn't think about this for Gundam, but this is like mainly for Star Wars. Um,
yeah,
just because I don't want them on display because I don't have room with all the Gundam, and so yeah, I'll like put on here like this is Disney Plus because this is anything that's from the Disney Plus shows. Um,
I'm just considering asking my daughter to move out, and I'm just going to use her room for Gunpla storage.
Man, that is so funny because a good friend of mine in high school, and we didn't really keep up much afterwards. Um, he had huge, and he was into Gundam when I didn't even know what it was, and he just never talked to me about it because no one knew what it was. But he had that Transformers Diaclone was his main thing, and he had a room in his house set up of just that stuff, and then
That is
and
so
then he had
awesome.
a baby,
And
and
yep,
and
that's
and he has two
gone.
now, and so I think what he did was, and this seems like an interesting idea. I don't know. He bought a storage unit to make his display area, so
It
it's stored in there but displayed. Um,
Interesting.
seems
Yeah, that
cool, but like, there's a lot of times where I'm even like, oh, I need some, but it's in the attic. I don't want to go to the attic. But if like it was at a storage place, I'm not gonna go drive to the storage place.
yeah, absolutely not.
So it's like I like to have this stuff in arm's reach. So one thing I have been doing a lot is this for
That's nifty.
all those effect parts from Robot Spirits, like or like yeah. So when I want to like put the effect parts together, or how I'm storing them or whatever, the accessories, And I started just putting the robot spirits back in their boxes, and maybe this is different than Gunpla. It's like for some reason I want to keep the robot spirits boxes, and I don't know if that's a psychological thing, and I don't need to. But then like I will put them back in there with their weapons for the ones I don't display. Uh, Whereas with the Gunpla boxes, I actually break them down and flatten them because I
Yeah.
just love the artwork, and that's easy to store.
Well, and a lot of people will flatten them and then maybe like put them in a binder, like with plastic sleeves, so
That's a
that
good
they
idea.
can flip through them. That's a good way of compressing the Gunpla boxes. Zionic Shadow is the one that hyped me to the idea of there was a guy I think it was on Reddit that basically took the tops and folded them kind of in on themselves and made them into basically like picture frames,
Yeah,
and
I
you
saw
can
that.
display the box art on the wall, which is pretty neat idea.
That is. Yeah, that is. And I wonder if I'll ever do that one day. I remember one time I kept, and I have them in binders now. I might have shown them before. I keep all the card backs for the vintage collection Star Wars. And
Have
in my
to.
previous house, I had them all on my wall to look at. As much as I loved it, I don't. Also, I thought that's I probably don't need to do it because it was like in the office at the front of the house, and I was like, I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's not like I want to hide things from people, but also it's funny because it's like my wife and kids don't care about this stuff, but they
Right.
are
They're
tolerating it. Yeah.
supportive.
So it's like it's almost like I have to meet in the middle sometimes and not make
Yeah.
it to where. And I feel that right now, like this room I'm in, right in front of me is a giant opening, and it's the living room. And sometimes I feel bad. It's like I have so I have like in a corner that people can't see. I have like a whole glass case, and then over here there's a shelf that people can't see. Um, I used to have the sound foam people use to make your mic
Yeah.
sound better. I used to have that all on this wall right here, but I don't think that really did anything. And I was like, you
No,
know what? I was
you
like,
have a
I'm gonna
nice enough microphone that it does the work for you.
exactly. So I was like, you know what? I'll just take it down so I can put another shelf up because that it was like I'm just running out of space. And so there's this weird thing where maybe if I had a closed off room somewhere else, I would feel more comfortable having things out. But at the same time, there's this things that maybe it doesn't matter. Like, who
Yeah.
is someone going to look at my room and be like, "Oh my god, I'm never coming here again." Most of the time, people, especially older people that come by, like family friends, they'll be like, "Wow," and they'll look around and be like, "What is this?" So it is
Well,
kind of
this is
cool.
how I spend my free time.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
well, yeah, as someone that works in the design industry and has made packaging, it is kind of flattering to think like, man, I wish that people would cherish the kind of artwork that I've done because, you know,
Yeah,
I never got to design product or anything like that. So it's like, yeah, you're going to take the product out of the packaging and then throw away the box, but it's like, yeah, I spent a lot of hours on that box.
yeah. No, I know what you mean, and it's funny. So I wonder if that's where it comes from. Like, if I go buy a collectible, sometimes it's like, "Wow, look at this box. It looks cool," and then like I'll want to save it because I'm like, this is a thing. Even some might say, "Well, it's just trash, throw it away." It's like, well, it's a thing that was created by someone, and it's weird. It's a weird psychological thing.
Yeah, one of those weird quirks of us humans, it's,
In
you
the
might say
interesting,
that it Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say the interesting thing about it is it's not like it's a survival need. It's you know what I mean. I don't need to survive to collect these things that don't allow me to continue to survive. It's not like I'm hoarding food. It's
Right.
Gunpla. So it's interesting that we will get into something and love it. It's like an expression. I think we've talked about that before. It's like we're expressing
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
it's very cool. So the other thing I do is I do have stuff in my attic, and then I have this laundry room that happens to be really tall for some reason. Like I guess I have a 2-story house, and the laundry room like goes up to the top, so it has a lot of storage, and I'll put things there. But
Nice.
it's funny. I'll find random nooks and crannies around the house to like put things. Like,
Just stuff Gunpla in,
well, yeah.
like
There's this. Before I got into Gundam, like right before, Lego had this line called Nexo Knights. I don't know if that sounds
I
familiar.
remember those.
Okay, they were
Yeah.
mechs, and they looked so badass, and I bought them all. Just the mechs of the line.
Yeah.
I have them built, and they're just in my nightstand. Like if I open the bottom of my nightstand, there's a bunch of Lego Nexo Knights because I don't know where else to put them where they don't fall apart. Um, yeah, so I find random nooks and crannies, but then there's that balance. It's like even if I had enough room to have everything, should I do that? Is it possible to get to a point where I'm overburdening myself and that might have an impact on me in some way? Have you
Yeah.
so in your Discord server, you posted pictures of your it's a basement, right?
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
currently in the basement.
Okay.
This is sort of like the corner. It's funny. You're like, I've got open space here. It's like for me, it's like the bar and then a rec room where like my daughter and I play, and we've got the TV and everything
But
set
that's
up.
awesome.
But then yeah, further down is the garage where I originally had my YouTube studio set up in there, but A, it's not climate controlled, and B,
Oh.
when I started working from home, it was like, well, I can't work in the garage, so I work over here.
Ah, okay. That's pretty interesting. You know what? Quick aside, since I've been like having computers set up since living with my parents and like recording videos, once remote work started happening, like I was already like to
You're
me it
good to
was
go.
like it just worked. And so it was interesting when I would hear people be like, "Oh, now I have to find an office space." But it still makes sense because my wife works from home too, and she is in our master bedroom, and that is, I mean, it's okay for her, but I'm sure she would rather have her own office. And the only
Yeah.
reason I have this is because I was already working from home.
Well, and you
So
and I grew up in the days when you would have the family computer, and it
yeah,
was like so there was already like a desk kind of
yeah,
around the house where you had like this big, the tower and all
yep,
the
that's right.
so
Yeah, I remember those days. I remember, man, great days. I remember going to bed and in the next room over where my dad had his office, I could hear the music from StarCraft playing, and I'd go to sleep to StarCraft music, and I
that's
loved it.
soothing. StarCraft ASMR.
Yeah, no, but yeah. So I always wonder, like, sometimes I talk with my wife. It's like we need a bigger house, and it's not just because of this. It's like we have three animals, we have three kids, and it's a cool house, and I think we could be fine in it. But sometimes it's like, man, what if I could have my own music room where I can set up all
Yeah.
my instruments? Right now, the drums are in the garage, and in Texas, you can only survive for like 2 days out of the year in the garage. So, um, but I don't know. Have you thought about that? Although honestly, seeing your room and the way you had it set up, because didn't you have like multiple desks set up for different
Yeah,
things?
so yeah, the way it's kind of set up now, and I'm like I said, I'm definitely going to migrate in there soon. But my wife had a desk at our old house, and I had a desk, and so I kind of, you know, she doesn't use it now anymore because she's not in school anymore, and so
Hmm.
I've got two desks in there and a couple of like card tables and things, and so it's like we've got the 3D printer and like the crafting section on one desk, and then the other desk has like a hutch on it and has more like a display. So yeah, I'm basically converting the display desk into like the photography area for my completed builds.
Ah,
Hopefully, having a space to take these photos is going to actually inspire me to finish some of these builds so that
no,
I will
that's what I'm
take pictures
saying.
there. Um,
That is exactly, I think, what a creator needs. You need. Yeah, I just. I mean, do you really need? But you do kind of sometimes to be in that mindset. Like that's why I removed my weights into the garage and I put this desk here because I can't just be building Gunpla on this desk that I use when I'm doing work and when I'm playing video games, and that at least it's separate so I can focus on what I need to do.
Yeah,
But
and it's not just for, like, hobby stuff like Gunpla, like, you
yeah,
think about, painters and, you know, actual it's like, I don't wanna say like real artists, but it's like, we
yeah,
are artists in our own respects, but,
yep,
there are more traditional artists, I would say, that they have, like, a studio space and a space to
yeah,
create and then a space to display, and, having dedicated spaces. It's interesting you said, like, we collect these things not because we need them to survive, but I think that on Maslow's hierarchy, I think that dedicated spaces for things is something, like, up near the top. It's obviously not food or shelter,
right,
but
yeah,
having a dedicated space to sit down and have dinner, like, why do we
yep,
need dining rooms? Why do we need a kitchen? You could just as easily, if you had a hot plate, cook in the living room, but we don't do that.
right.
in much the same way, we need a space to create, we need a space to do certain things, and so having dedicated spaces that are committed to a purpose, I think is important for us.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. And I'm curious if any of you want to comment about like your space or what you do about that. Do you have your own dedicated space? And when you're storing things, what do you do? So I want to ask you, are you at a point to where you sometimes feel like you have too many kits?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah,
And on that note, I'm
yeah.
probably gonna start doing more giveaways and things like that to, it's nice to feel unburdened and,
Yeah. You know,
and you and I are incredibly blessed to not only have the things that we have, but also have the space. I know a lot of people don't. They live in an
yeah.
apartment or they, whatever the case may be, don't have the space to kind of do these types of things. So it is important, I would say, to be grateful, and I want to express that like I'm so thankful to not only have the things that we have, but also have the space to do them.
100%. Yeah, because when I was talking about like wanting a bigger house, sometimes it's like, well, I should be able to live without doing that because I am so lucky to have all this in the first place.
Yeah,
It, and so with the other part of that is the other thing that I think would be cool is because there's this Gunpla I've built where I wouldn't mind. I don't know if selling is the right word, giving away. Like I don't know how much people want built kits. I still haven't. I mean, there's commissions, which is one thing, but
yeah,
then there's like if you already built one, you're like, I don't really need this around anymore. But I wonder if someone would enjoy having a real grade new Gundam already built for them with all the decals. I wonder because I would love to do something like that. And the only reason I bring up the money part is because I got to pay off all the bills of buying these things in the first one now. But yeah, it's very interesting, and I'm trying to be deliberate too with how I'm displaying things and
yeah.
not just having it where, okay, I just lay everything out here. It's like, no, I want to have this mean something. I want to have this, and then maybe because of that, I don't need this. But it's a journey.
Yeah.
Gotta figure it out. But anyway, no, that was a really good topic there. But I am going to move over real quick.
Yeah.
The Double Zeta Gundam mass production type. So that showed up in GBO2, which is pretty cool because I never even really thought of, or I guess knew about, that there was a mass production Double Zeta, but that
Yeah.
makes sense because usually when they have these projects of specific types, then they have mass production variants.
Yeah. The Zeta and the Double Zeta in particular have, a lot of different variants and, mass production lines and stuff. The first time I saw both of those, like the mass production Zeta, mass production Double Zeta, was in G Generation Genesis. So I I didn't know that it existed outside of SD form. Um,
Yeah, that's
but yeah, I
introduced in
mean,
MSV.
isn't the Phaz the mass production Zeta Gundam? It's like
Oh, yeah. Let's
because there are
see.
multiple Phazes, but
Let me see how it that
and
appears
then
in
like is the Zeta
Sentinel.
Plus the mass production. Oh, see, Talus is correcting me. The Phaz is not the mass production Double Zeta.
Okay, okay. So with this, the one thing I think is pretty cool is it like has like a GM style head. The other thing I want to bring up real quick, I don't know if anyone would agree with me, but it almost looks like that James gun, like late UC in a way. Do you kind of
Oh
see that?
yeah,
Like it almost has a late UC vibe. I don't, but let's see what let's see, 18 meters. Okay, so that's not too tall,
yeah. I mean
right?
that's pretty standard. I think
Yeah.
even the RX-78 too is 18
Yeah.
meters.
Yeah, that's what I think is very interesting. Let's see. So it was first seen in 88, last seen in 94. So I wonder if it has like piloted by Fresburg Corps member Breyer Reud. Man, crazy names here. Was developed for technical tests with the Gundam Delta Chi at Area X of the Mariana base. I can't say I know what Area X is, so I'll have to look up. But it also participated in search operations for Xeon remnants. That's cool. With the Delta Chi, sweet. So could it be there was the Delta Chi and it was backed by a bunch of these mass-produced Double Zetas looking for Xeon remnants? That's cool. Gotta
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um, Battle at Devil's Nest. So there's some lore to this that I need to look into someday. That's a cool. Actually, that almost looks like a better representation of it. Actually, am I sharing my
Yeah.
screen with you? Let
No,
me.
but it's cool. I have the stream up.
Oh, let me. I can do this real quick because then you can see it immediately. There you go. But yeah, you see how like it almost looks like I don't know. I like the proportions, but I don't want to knock it because really that other drawing is of probably Cunio's work. Where he does
Yeah.
kind of that standard line art stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
Is
that's
it?
fair. I mean,
Yeah, Cunio.
it's very clearly like a double Zeta. You can
Yeah,
tell from the chest design, you can tell from
and
the
the
legs.
the shoulders with
Uh,
the gigantic beam saber handles, which I can never get over how huge those are.
yeah,
I love it though.
it's
Um,
pretty silly, but I love that it was designed with purpose, right? Because the double Zeta itself can turn those cannons or turn the beam sabers down and fire beam cannons from it. It doesn't make sense for the mass production one though, because well, I guess it rotates the shoulder.
that's what it looks like. Yeah, from this, it's like for the drawing, they're representing it by having one rotated and one not, which is pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
So one thing is that between the double Zeta and this, or like on the double Zeta, it has the huge like shield shoulder things. Is that supposed to be extra armor, or does that have thrust in it? I've never really understood that, or we know that's a mystery. That's a Gundam mystery.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's so for the mass production type, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have them, but I guess for the standard double Zeta, it's part of the transformation to have like those wings
Yeah,
and all those different panels and flaps associated with it. To me, we had this discussion before, but I think that the double Zeta design is kind of a mess of flaps and
yeah,
like.
it is.
But I think that the mass production line here is a lot more streamlined. It's a lot more what you would expect a mobile suit to look like, I think.
Yeah, and even this drawing here from what could potentially be a manga, it looks
Mhm.
really good. Like it has a little bit more of the grounded kind of scaling proportions to it. But cool. Well, that just about does it. That was a good show. Some good topics. Hopefully, people learned something. I know I did. I got to get those tackle boxes for the size of the Gundams. That's going to help me so much because,
Yeah.
like it's still at arm's reach, but it's
Right.
compacted. Yeah.
Now, obviously it's not suitable for master grades, but for the high
Yeah.
grades, especially if I've like, okay, I've built this kit and I know that I want to customize it later. I'm not going to display a naked kit, so
Yeah.
box it up and save it.
I think that's a great idea. I'm gonna grab that. Well, anyway, yeah. Thanks a lot, everyone in the chat. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Check the links in the description. All of Steven's stuff is there because remember, we always stream on Wednesdays. We have a lot of fun there. He has the member streams on Tuesdays, and then you're still. Do you have a dissecting Gundam coming tomorrow?
We do.
Oh,
Yes. I'm
love
excited
it.
about this one.
I know. I love that series. What show? What episode are you doing tomorrow? Or is it a surprise?
Episode 4 of Mobile
Zeta.
Suit Gundam, so it's going to
Oh,
be
cool.
Escape from Luna 2.
Oh,
The
cool.
first time we get to meet Commandant Joaquin, which,
Oh, good.
ironically enough, I was always spelling his name incorrectly.
Oh, well, who doesn't when it comes to Gundam names, right? I mean, anyway.
Exactly.
All right, well, thanks everybody, and we will talk later.
Yeah, cheers.